Alright, now that we have our undershirt done, now let's get started on the outside parts, which is the straps here and this corset area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color this first in a pink, since I planned this to be pink. So I'm going to be coloring this in a light pink, just as a base once again. And I can color over the dark because it doesn't really make a difference anyway. So that's the the good thing about coloring the dark parts first and leaving the light colors last. Same thing here. You can color pretty dark at this point, just because, it's a pretty light color. And then I also want to color in these straps here, because that is a pink color. So I'm only coloring the upper strap here. I'm pressing pretty hard just because I want to get it pretty opaque. So now let's go ahead and use a magenta now, which will act as our dark. Or actually, let's use some bubble gum here. And I'll add another layer of pink. And that makes it actually a more vibrant pink now. So that is good for that. Now let's add in our magenta. So for the ribbon, I'm going to add in the magenta around these straps here and a little bit towards the edge here, because that is usually where the shadows are. I'm also going to add a little bit of this pink down below here as well. And I'm also going to add some towards the end. I'm going to also add my dark areas around the corners of the neck here. Not the corners, but like the round areas of the neck. And unfortunately, I can't really see this very well, so I'm going to go in with my brush pen again. I'm going to lightly fill in these dark areas just so that these ribbons can pop out. So I'm making this thicker. So by trapping this area with a dark pen, you can it pops out more. So now let's go ahead and add in some darkness along the straps here, since I want this kind of strap to be a little bit more like a plastic or metallic look. So I'm going to be adding some pockets of dark and pockets of light. So I'm going to be adding some pockets of dark, where the curve starts coming down here, because it's it's going back into space, and here. And since these are kind of more random, you don't have to. It's not really a soul science here. Here is more of a ribbon-like satin kind of feel, so I'm going to just shade in these two areas. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white. I'm going to go ahead and paint over this. Not paint, I keep saying paint. I'm going to color over this. So if you want this to be kind of shiny and reflective, what you can do is use your gel pen and then add your highlights on top. Because this is not marker, it won't bleed in and blend in with the other colors. So come on, gel pen work. Hope it's not out of ink. It's not out of ink yet. There it goes. You can use a bright white tone to add that nice highlight there. So that's what you can do if you want to make your, if you want to make your clothes a bit more metallic. And I'm adding these whites along the boundaries just because it's like a little turning edge. I'm also going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm only adding this because it's a kind of plastic-like material. So as you can see, it's pretty good. Works pretty well. Now to make a darker dark on this pink here, I'm going to use my orchid color. I'm going to be just putting in that color down here. For the straps here, I'm just going to be coloring in the inner parts. And for here, I'm just going to be coloring in areas where the shadow's already pretty dense. So just kind of recoloring them here. There. That just pops it out more. So I kind of was thinking about it while I looked at this piece, and I'm actually thinking I want to make this part here more like a black leather. So I'm thinking of even going so far as to just fill this all in black, except for, save for a few spots. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a 01 here pen, and if I want to make like a leather-like texture, I'm going to have to like know what the shininess is going to be like. So I'm going to make this rather reflective. It's almost kind of like a latex kind of top, maybe. So if you want to have a latex kind of shiny look, then what you want to do is you want to draw in your highlights. So when it comes to drawing highlights like this, I like drawing highlights that kind of go across and round out. So that's what you want to do. And this may be a failure, but it may not be. So I'm kind of, playing a little bit of the risk here. So I'm also going to add a little bit of highlight around the bottom part because there's a bit of reflective light there. Same here. And here. So this is where I'm just marking my, this is just where I'm marking my areas of light. Okay, so once I have that done, now this is kind of more experimental. If you don't want to do this, don't do it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush pen once again, and I'm going to just shade this all into pure black. I know I said no, don't do pure black unless it's a statement, and also if it's a texture that requires it. So I'm doing that right now. I'm using my black just to kind of create this really high contrast, and I'm also doing that because I don't like these buttons here, so that's why I'm changing my mind on these buttons, and that's why I'm making it more of a latex look. Of course, if you want, you can also look at reference on this. And not only that, but you also want to make sure that your markings are consistent. Make sure you're following the flow. And what I'm actually going to do is switch this pen to a number 1. That's not it. Where's my number 1? There it is. And that's just because I can control it better. So I'm tracing all these areas that have a highlight. Just tracing around the areas that have a highlight. So making sure that all my markings and all of my brush strokes are looking good. And if anything, I can always use my white gel pen in the end to add any extra highlights. I'm also going to add some more highlights myself here. Your paper may kind of bend a little bit while doing this process. That's okay. I need a little bit of a dark border around these edges here because that's what usually happens. Usually if there's a border, there's one side that's dark and one side that's light, and usually they're kind of in the middle. The light's in the middle between the two. Adding a shadow up here, just filling it all in. So this part actually looks a little bit more organic, which is why I like this side a little bit better, because it looks more organic. So if you want, you can look at reference of latex if you want, or any texture that you want, you can do it. But I'm only doing this because it's a stylistic choice here. It's more of a fashion thing, because it just feels like it needs it. So that's what I like to do. I like to, I like different materials because it kind of gives a different vibe. Since she's kind of sassy looking, this kind of material fits pretty well. Alright, wait for that to dry before adding some more of your white gel pen. I'm actually going to add a little bit more white gel pen. Let me see if I can touch this. That's pretty dry. I'm going to add this on top. Gonna make sure it's pretty well coated. There. So it looks more leather-like. So if you want to do this, you can. I just think it's a kind of an interesting dynamic here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm actually thinking of putting this as completely black as well. One reason because I don't want this to be completely pink. I want this to kind of go with a pink, black look. So it's almost like a little pattern. So what you can do is use your marker. Take this all out. And the reason why I did not use that for my shirt is because I want to differentiate between materials. So that's up to you. I made this a lot more stark because, you know, it's kind of like a main piece in her outfit. So I want to make sure that stands out pretty well. So that's going to be used as a different material. Make sure every white spot is filled. So it's clean. That takes a bit of time, but it's worth it. There. And then what we can do is wait for that to dry, or else we'll smudge our colors, our lovely colors. I'm actually going to add a little bit more shapes in here. Just going to add a little bit more thinner feel here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my magenta, and actually I'm going to take my pink. Let me see, my bubblegum pink. Let's wait for this to dry. See, yeah, it's not dry yet, so I'm going to wait for that. I'm going to just blow on it, whatever. So I'm fanning it right now. So far so good. Looks pretty nice. So now I'm going to take this into pink. Just kind of lightly color it in. Once again, keep layering your colors. I'm using a pink now, rather than bubblegum pink. I'm going to be using this hot magenta. To kind of accent some bits here. So kind of add a little bit of shadow at each area. There. So far so good. Our top is pretty much done. I'm going to add a little bit of a gray here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a gray. Using gray, I'm just going to lightly paint in areas where there is the leather or where there's highlights. And that's just because I don't like leaving this completely white all the time. I like just kind of coloring it in lightly. There. That's our top. And that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.